So the conservative ruling party and its liberal rival split key races in local elections that analysts say ended in a tie amid rising public indignation over the government's handling of April's deadly ferry sinking. But what about its impact on the economy and beyond? Dr. Byoung-joo joins us live in the studio for an in-depth discussion. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
All right, so what kind of an economic impact are we going to be expecting from the election results?
Local government chiefs, they usually have very limited impact in terms of like what they can do about the national economy, for instance. So from the beginning, this is not a political event that should have a profound effect on the economic policy for the nation as a whole. But for Seoul, taking one example, incumbent mayor who is the victor of this election this time, Park Won-soon, has been advocating the preservation of overall community here rather than heavy focus on redevelopment project. While his challenger, Byoung-joo, was advocating restarting a major redevelopment project all around the city and boosting up the overall real estate market. Seoul being such an important part of the country here, if Byoung-joo had been elected, we could have expected big-time boost in terms of real estate market, but here that possibility is gone for now. And other localities, last time, 4 years ago, there were major competition battles being fought over different kinds of regional development projects. This time it was very quiet because of partly the Seoul disaster, for sure.
Right, the ferry disaster.
Right, and so this time we don't see that as much. Overall, of course, most of the candidates were promising greater spending on the welfare side, but they'll have to be paying close attention to the fiscal balance of their local governments as well. And then voters have expressed their concern about the fiscal health for individual localities as well. So as a whole, to answer your question, I don't think we're expecting any major impact in terms of nationwide economic policy here.
Now, what about education? Education is, of course, an important economic issue when seen from a longer-term aspect.
Right.
And we saw the election results of the Superintendents of Education nationwide. Of course, the one in Seoul had a very controversial race there. But what do we see in the election results?
The official, the setting of the election of superintendents for education, they don't have official party supports, but we knew who were progressive members and who were conservative, candidates and so on. And in Seoul, we had a very interesting turnout here because of the fight between the two conservative candidates, and looks like this the one that was elected as the new superintendent for education got a windfall gain from this political fight between the conservatives. Nationwide, we have to recognize, I think 13 out of 17 superintendents for education were elected with their political inclination towards progressivism or liberalism here. And what it shows, I think, is not the people's indictment of the current political, the ruling party or the government itself, rather their desire to see some kind of new direction for education, especially after all this Seoul ferry disaster and controversies over Korea's excessive emphasis on competition on education. So those progressive candidates who had new ideas about making education less competitive and less stratified in a way, in terms of like making more of these high schools equal, getting rid of some of the special high schools and so on. I think they got the support from the people. So rather than political indictment, I think this is people's expression of their desire for new direction for Korea's education.
Sometimes, I think, for some of the students here in Korea, it might be very confusing because for some years you have this policy towards having equal high schools, and then next they have special high schools building up and start getting established, and then next administration comes, that's just back to square one. So it must be a confusing time.
But the thing is, that has been that way for the past about 4 decades here in Korea because education is so important. People change their mind, and then there are policy changes and so on. So this time it won't be different.
All right, let's move over to the early voting system. It was introduced for the first time, which I took advantage of, and it was made possible by Korea's IT expertise.
Right, this is something very
Right,
new.
right. So what can you say about the impact and significance of this technology revolution that brought about this change?
There were a lot of different speculations before this election took place. They're saying because people were allowed to vote early on, maybe the overall turnout will increase. What we learned this time is that those people who are going to vote anyway just took advantage of this and then found this very convenient. I was wondering how this operation going to be carried out, and I was really delightfully surprised to find out actually you could have just walk in any location nationwide and then present your ID, and what it does is a totally computerized system.
Right.
They print out your sheets for your votes.
Yeah, seven
different kinds, depending on the locality. So I thought this was fascinating improvement and then technological innovation. And I'm sure other countries will pay attention in terms of emulating Korea's system here. In terms of political impact, as I said, it didn't really raise the overall the voter turnout here in Korea. But however, it made a big difference in terms of like encouraging or solidifying, strengthening political participation here. Of course, at the end, in terms of vote counting, it took longer time because they had to open the envelopes, every single one. So the overall vote counting itself took longer, and a lot of people became rather kind of, what should I say, impatient in terms of results, because people had to stay up all night until even early morning today. But the thing is, once again, this IT revolution and its impact on political activities here in Korea and political participation here in Korea is something that a lot of people around the world probably took a strong note of it, and I'm looking forward to reactions from around the world if you're watching this program.
Right. I mean, for one, it made it very convenient for us to go and vote.
Absolutely.
For a wrap-up, very briefly, we're running out of time, how will the results affect the Park administration's economic reform drive?
Well, I think you reported nicely. The Park administration is now in a good position to drive their economic agenda, not being totally affected by, not being significantly affected by the result of this election this time. So we will look forward to the further future agendas being introduced and the drives being introduced as we go forward.
All right. Well, we will have to wait and see how this really plays out and factors into the state of affairs. But as for now, it was more or less, I think, a tie for the elections.
You're right. I agree.
All right, Dr. Kim Byoung-joo, thank you so much.
Thank you.